Hello everybody and welcome to our next community developer meeting in October. Today we are going to focus on several upcoming API changes and other changes in Moodle 3, which is about to be released in a couple of weeks. We are approaching beta maturity level. Today we have several technical problems. Down here we have several servers down, so we don't have docs available at the moment, checker available at the moment. Let's look at this as an opportunity for us developers to imagine how our teachers feel when they rely fully on Moodle and their Moodle is down suddenly, so they have to improvise a lot in their lesson. So yes, this is the situation. Okay, so we will have this agenda, Moodle 3, upcoming API changes. We will have special guests from our community to talk about their experience and sharing their experience with trying to get PHP 7 running together with Moodle. We will have Andrew talking about Travis CI integration a bit, and a couple of other things that will eventually emerge. I would like to ask you to use DevPad today for raising questions, discussing things, keeping minutes and your notes for the meeting. So we have a single place where all the discussion and things like that happen. Okay, let me pass the microphone to Perth for Damien, our developer manager, who would talk a bit about upcoming API changes in Moodle 3. Damien?
Hello. We were planning on going through all of the major API changes. Unfortunately, because our tracker is down, it makes it a bit difficult to go in and look at the details of individual issues, but I'll still go through them anyway, just from looking at all the things that we've annotated in the upgrade.txt file. So yeah, we just step through them and just talk a bit about each of them to give people some background on all of those changes. One thing that might be helpful at some point is if you've got the URL for where to put the meeting notes, because people can't see it on the docs. So if it's on dev chat, that's okay. I can see dev chat. So just looking through the upgrade text file, the first big set of changes is mainly just upgrade to third-party libraries. So we upgraded about 12 different major libraries. Some of them hadn't been upgraded in a very long time, and our Moodle version was sort of so out of date that it was basically a fork, and we've managed to get those versions onto a proper upstream version and remove all of our local changes as much as possible. So that should make the process a lot easier in future. Probably the biggest upgrade was to Zend, which hadn't been upgraded in several years. Our version of Zend that we run is not a full version of Zend, so you're not supposed to use it for anything outside of web services. It's basically the Zend package, and then we select the web service parts and then follow the tree through and only keep the areas that are used either directly or indirectly by those web services. So a lot of the things like forms and things like that get cut out of it. So if you're using anything outside of Zend, outside of web services in that Zend library, there's big warnings saying don't do it because it find random errors. But we did manage to get Zend upgraded, which was good. In future, we'll be trying to look for options to get Zend removed completely. It's just it's a very big library, and we use hardly any of it. But even the bit that we're left with now is 12 megabytes of code that it's only used to generate the SOAP and XMLRPC and some other web services. So it's a bit of a waste having that big library in there. So in future, we'll look to get rid of that completely. The next couple of points listed in the upgrade is about, it's to do with the new Ajax Web Service functionality. So in 2.9 we added functionality so that you can create a web service or an external function, and then you can mark that that service can be called from Ajax. There's docs in the Moodle docs about how to do that, and I've talked about that at developer meetings before. But what we noticed is, firstly, we were always checking that you had a valid session when you were calling one of those web services, which is a problem if you're trying to write some kind of Ajax widget which lives on the login page because you haven't logged in yet, so you haven't got a session. When if you're just returning public information, there should really be no reason why you need a session. So things like language strings and templates. So we added a new option which goes in your DB services file, which just says that you can say whether you do or don't require a session for your particular external function. We also changed the way that we mark external functions to be safe to call from JavaScript. Because we're adding more options, these all felt like they made more sense in the DB services PHP file than the previous way, where we were defining functions in the external class, saying like the function was blah 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 is allowed from Ajax and you return true. That seemed a bit clunky, so we moved it all into the DB services file. And if we need more flags in future, it will make sense to add flags that way. The next issue is one that's an old issue, and we've just enforced it. Basically, all plugins now have to declare their proper Franken-style component name properly, and if they don't, they'll get debugging warnings. So this is important for the plugins DB, especially when David's been working on new functionality to be able to install plugin dependencies automatically and groups of plugins and things like that. It's very, very important to have your plugin components set up properly. We have upgraded PHP unit, so there may be some very old type of assertions in PHP unit that now give you warnings or don't work properly. So just run your unit tests and make sure that they're still working on the new version. Most of the common ones just work, and some obscure ones that got deprecated. To do with JavaScript and UI, the way that UI used to work is that if you used UI outside of a UI module, there was a thing called simple UI, but it would actually be a different instance of UI than what you would get if you used UI inside a JavaScript module. So we basically had two completely separate copies of UI at the same time. And this gives you problems when you're trying to publish events and subscribe to events, because they're sort of constrained to their version of UI. Because we're adding more AMD code, and sometimes that code needs to be able to talk to all of our legacy UI code through events and things like that, we combined the two instances of UI. So basically, if you use Y anywhere, whether it's inside or outside of a module, it will always be the same instance of Y as everywhere else. And the events that you publish can be listened to from everywhere else as well. There was a change to GetReferrer. We added a new, more secure version of Get called GetLocalRef that does some cleaning on the path and checks for some security errors. So you should always use GetLocalRef now. There's some other people talking about PHP 7 support. We've started making changes to support PHP 7. There's still more changes that we need to make in Moodle before it'll be fully supported. The main problems are to do with external libraries. So when the external libraries need upgrading, we either need to get issues upstream fixed and then get onto the newer version of the third-party library. But in some cases, like quick forms, there is no newer version, and we're on a very customized version of that. So we basically need to decide what we're going to do about those third-party libraries with PHP 7. With the forms, we're looking to refresh the forms API in an upcoming release. Not 3.0, but down the track. So we want to be able to do nice forms that are rendered from templates and can be called from JavaScript. And so that's probably a good point to do something with the old forms API at the same time. So we will be coming up with a proper plan for that and looking at all the other PHP 7 issues in time for 3.1. There is some other notes about the XMLRPC client for web services can now use a proxy. Seems straightforward. Groups and groupings functions can all now accept ID numbers from web services, which is a good way to reference those things without having to load their ID. And then there is a very long list of functions that were deprecated a long time ago, and they've now reached the stage of their deprecation where we can remove them completely. So they should have been throwing warnings for at least 2 major Moodle versions, and now we've gone through and cleaned them up.
So, as far as I can see, most of these changes are basically just, say, small improvements for developers. I think there is nothing to be afraid of, like upgrading plugins or something like that. We didn't actually introduce any major change in some, essential API or something like that, did we? Unmute, please. Sorry.
So we have been working on major features, but they're not going to be included in 3.0. We're still working on them. So the main one of those is learning plans or competency-based education. But in terms of this Moodle release, it's a very stable release. There are improvements, but they're all sort of small and spread across the board, and no big API changes anyway. So there's nothing really to be too concerned about. Yep, and looking through the rest of that list, there's not anything that needs particular explanation. There's only just some small improvements and changes to functions.
There's 2 bits involved there for your questions.
Sorry, I just.
Okay.
Good.
Sorry, we're just reading these questions from the dev pad. Simple UI had a bug.
No, that's not the question. That's the one that's the bullshit question.
Just the bug? Is this now available for third-party plugins to create these calls?
Those DB services.
Yes. Any plugin. So you define your external function in an external class, and then from your dbservices.php file in your plugin, that's where you register new web services, and that's exactly the same place where you can mark those functions as being safe to call from Ajax. So as soon as you do that, you can do that in your plugin.
So here's the other one section. PHP section.
There was a question for
quick forms.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have. It's not far enough down the road to have any specs or progress yet. It's something that we've been thinking about, and I've only just been looking at it recently while we're in the freeze. So, but we will be, as soon as we have more information about that and some kind of plans, we'll be putting out a proposal and people can comment on it and progress that.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And somebody's asking what the roadmap is for.
Thank you very much, Damon, for providing this short overview. As always, I think the most important message we can send clearly to our dev community is that Moodle 3 is not a release to be afraid of. There are no big changes in APIs. It is a very stable release with just small improvements here and there. So please keep calm. Do upgrade your plugins to support the newest version, and I think this can be the essential message we can send. There are a lot of other things coming in next releases, 3.1, 3.2, and other things. So as always, please check carefully those upgrade TXT files that are spread all over the code base in Moodle. They list all the changes for either for core or the particular plugin type you work on. For all the they list all the changes that you should be aware of, and you should be fine. Great. I think we can now move to next item on our agenda, where a couple of questions was raised as well, and we can return to some of those. We would like to start talking more about PHP 7 support in Moodle, as PHP 7 is coming in December-October time. So, and it is set to or proved to be a huge or have big impact on a couple of things like performance and these things. So it's good to start talking about how to get PHP 7 support for Moodle. And I'm happy to have two guys from our dev community tonight for Eric from the United States, who woke up really early today just to join us. And I asked them to share their experience with actually trying to get PHP 7 working with Moodle. And I would like to ask them what they found and where can we learn more about their findings. So Eric and Tony, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I was waiting for Tony there.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good, great guys. So let's say, can we just shortly summarize the biggest benefits that PHP 7 comes from us? I'm pretty sure that they are well known. Just as a quick introduction.
Oh, well.
Okay, Tony.
Pretty obviously, the biggest benefit is performance. So just in some really early quick tests I did using a large course in Moodle through the generator, and set that up as a guest access things just so I could hit it with Apache Bench without logging in and mucking around with sessions and that kind of stuff. And that runs about twice as fast on PHP 7 versus PHP 5.6. which is pretty massive difference. So for us, that's pretty interesting in terms of server resources and keeping users happy with Moodle performance overall. So that's kind of where it all started.
Yeah, that's great. Given that in theory, the only thing the administrator must do is to just upgrade PHP. It's a really big gain.
Yeah.
So you experienced this massive gain in performance. What was the biggest issues you faced?
So I think the biggest issue by far that's the most widespread is definitely the deprecated PHP 4 constructors that throws a warning from pretty much any time a file is included or required that has an old style constructor in it and not a PHP 5 constructor in the class. That will throw that warning. And that means that trying to run PHP unit and bhat and so on will fail pretty heavily on those. All the installs will throw warnings everywhere. It's very hard to see what's going on and get a picture of what's really a problem.
Right, right. Given that, these things are really annoying for us as developers and also for testers and these things, but still, maybe administrator can simply, turn the plugin on or off and all these things. Maybe good thing might be to first focus on real blockers in functionality, like things that actually broke.
That's right.
Yeah.
So there's also a couple of fatal error cases where there's a few things in sort of the syntax that have changed and now are not allowed, so you can't use break statements inside of an if statement anymore. That will cause a fatal error as soon as the file's loaded, whereas in 5.6 that's only a runtime issue if you hit that particular line of code. So those are sort of the really critical ones, because that will stop it in its tracks and throw a white screen at the user probably.
Right. Eric, did you have some other findings, or is it just in line with what Tony just shared?
So far, what I've found is basically the same. There are some edge cases that we're really going to have to search the code base for pretty hard. They've made some changes with the order of precedent when you use variable function names. So that's going to require basically a manual review of every place that we use variable function names in our code, which is actually a decent number of times. There are also some changes to for each in edge cases, which this is something that Bhat and PHP unit is probably going to find for us when we get those up and running on 7. I have a couple others real quick that I noted down that are important for us. Divide by zeros now throw an exception instead of just being a warning. The constructors, PHP alt tags that we don't use, but they're gone now, and eStrict is gone. All eStrict warnings have either been removed as a notice at all, or they've been changed to a notice or a warning, depending on what they were. But the variable syntax, the variable function calls are probably the biggest one that we really have to search through the code base and verify. Luckily, just with some addition of curly brackets, you can make it behave the same in all versions of PHP.
Good. So, yeah.
But the good news is that it seems that Moodle does, in general, run on PHP 7. It's just a matter of finding all the specific cases that we need to care about.
Yep. That's a great message. Apparently, we won't get things up and running for Moodle 3 yet, but I would like to ask guys in Perth whether they see, whether they could see, especially Damon as developer manager, whether we could consider adding support for PHP 7 as a must fix for Moodle 3.1, given that 3.1 is going to be LTS support, living on servers for a couple of years. It would be nice to have this. It was very short.
Yes.
We already have an epic, which is MDL 50565, I think. Can't check right now. Which is, I've been going through and picking up a lot of the issues that Eric's raised, plus other ones that I'm finding, and breaking them down into individual components, try and get as many of them fixed. We're prioritizing the ones where things are actually outright broken in PHP 7. So, for example, the HTTP raw post data variable was deprecated in PHP 5.5. We didn't notice. It's now been removed. So this week, Simi worked on an issue that was integrated this week. So that's a known PHP 7 complete breakage. There's a few others. There's one in SCORM, which I passed to Dan Marsden. He's looking at the options for that. So that's one that Eric discovered. So we're prioritizing those, but I'm trying to add as many as we find of those individual things to the epic, which is MDL 50565, and I've posted a link to that in DevPad already.
One thing that I just remembered that we will need to do is go through our coding guidelines and code checker rules and see if there's stuff that we need to add or change in relation to PHP 7 support.
Yep. Something to comment yet, Per? There are a couple of questions raised in DevPad. Maybe we could go through them. Apparently, one of the areas. Okay, go on, Andrew. Go on.
Well, so looking at some of the questions, there's one there about the roadmap for 3.1. So for 3.1, the major feature will be competency-based education. So we've been working on it for a while. We'll continue working on it all through the freeze and the on-sync, and we will be looking to get it in as early as possible in 3.1. And it is a big feature, and it's something that provides a big benefit for teachers, and it's really good. In terms of other projects, we are starting our pilot for the Moodle Association, and they're running some sample projects through, and one of the first things that they do will be producing the specifications for the things that they have voted for, and we'll be working on those for 3.1. So, in future, more and more of our roadmap will be completely determined by that Moodle Association. So that's where we're heading for in the future.
I'm sorry. I was actually thinking about PHP 7. If we could kindly wrap up with some conclusions, maybe. There was a thing about quick forms discussed, apparently, which is one of the biggest libraries which throws PHP 7 warnings.
Yep, that's right. So I think, like with quick forms and all those other things, we're going to need solutions that we can get done in time for 3.1. And so most likely thing is that we will set patches to quick forms and any other library that we can't get fixed upstream in order to get it PHP 7 support ready for 3.1. So yeah, so that shouldn't hold up PHP 7 support. And upgrading the quick forms library itself is a bigger project that's going to need lots of evaluation and lots of feedback from lots of people. And that one probably won't be ready for 3.1. It's just an ongoing thing that we need to do.
Great. Sorry, just muted you again. I think it's apparent that we can't probably, or we should not block PHP 7 support by having quick forms written yet. I think we can make sort of exception. I mean, the thing is that when it comes to third-party library, we try hard not to touch upstream versions that we adopt in Moodle. So only if the upstream library is not maintained or it hasn't been upgraded, or if we are using some older version or something like that, we will probably have to modify our own version that we backported to Moodle to make it PHP 7 compatible, and that way it could work. I wanted to ask Eric and Tony for if they have some more comments or maybe suggestions for the community, how guys can join and help with these topics, PHP 7.
Yeah, we're going to have, look in the epic when it's up, and I think especially over the next week, there are going to be a lot more issues added to that epic. That was part of the reason of bringing it to this meeting, was to try and get more attention to it, because
exactly
PHP performance improvements are so large that there's going to be a much bigger push, especially in the larger installs, to move to PHP 7 much sooner than we would move PHP versions normally. So, it's already somewhat of a disappointment that we're missing the 3.0 boat. And I understand PHP 7 isn't out yet, but if PHP 7 comes out this year like it's supposed to, we still won't have 3.1 until next June.
Yeah. Awesome. Tony, some more comments? Questions?
Yeah, I agree that it's going to be pretty important for larger sites. The other one, I think, though, it'd be really nice if those third-party developers got in there and tried running PHP 7 with their plugins and tried as soon as possible to get their code up and running. Run your tests, see how it goes, fix any issues, and then big sites will be in a position to use your plugin with PHP 7 as soon as possible.
Great, great. Thank you very much, guys, for coming today to share your first findings and experience with trying PHP 7 running. Once the tracker in docs is up again, we will share links to all the issues and epics where these things are discussed, and we will simply continue working on these in the tracker as usual. Let's aim and let's try hard to get PHP 7 support in Moodle 3.1 for the benefits of everybody. Okay, I would now like to ask Andrew Nichols for sharing his proposal or suggestions, or basically idea how to integrate Travis CI with Moodle development and what benefits are there, how to do it, and things like that. Andrew?
Cool. Thanks, David. I started on this a while ago after seeing what both Raj in our integration team and David Monal have been doing with it in the past. They've had a go at trying to get Travis integration working with Moodle in the past, and I thought a few weeks ago that it would be kind of useful to try and get that going. So there's an MDL for this. It's MDL 51458. I've already put a link in the dev pad. And essentially what we're trying to do is to integrate Travis continuous integration server to run a lot of the unit tests that we have available to us. One of the things that I've found since I started as an integrator is that people test things on the database servers they have, but obviously we don't have every database server available to us. And some of the other issues that we see frequently coming through, just think like white space being, random white space like trading white space, or hard tabs being introduced in files which technically fail our integration tests. And so essentially what I've done is to put up some Travis integration. I'll see if I can screen share that now. At the moment it is working. I'm hoping to get that integrated this week. It's up for integration and it's being tested, and we've been working on it quite a lot. So here's the latest build. What I'm doing on here at the moment is testing across Postgres and MySQL, and across PHP versions 5.4, 5.6, and at the moment PHP Nightly, which is PHP 7. Because Travis CI is available for free, we can. That's free to anyone who's using a public GitHub repository. It's really easy to set up. You just have to sign up for the Travis service, and then set it up to integrate with your Moodle site. And then there's a few other settings which I'm going to document when this is integrated. And basically, anytime you push any branch which has this .travis.yaml in Moodle, it will run across this matrix. Because it's free, we're trying not to take the mickey, so we're only running in PHP 5.6 and PHP 5.4. We're not running the unit tests against PHP 5.5, and because MySQL is really slow on Travis at the moment, it takes about 50 minutes, we're only running it against PHP 5.6. So in total we have 6 tests. Because we aren't yet supporting PHP 7, we can't run the unit tests on there yet, but when we're ready to do so, that should be really easy to add. And basically what we get in here, and so this is one of the CI tests, we'll be able to define various CI tests to run. If I just go down to the bottom here, at the moment the only thing we're doing is running a PHP lint across all of the files that you've pushed. Longer term, so that should pick up any kind of failures that you see. So this is, get the right one. No, not that one. Get this one here. So this is one I was playing last week. This particular failure included a fail which only happens on PHP 7. Before that, it was just a warning. It wasn't picked up by the PHP linter. So this is an example of a change which would be picked up as breaking a version of PHP that we support. We also pick up unit test failures across Postgres and MySQL, which are the main two database servers available on Travis, and various other bits and pieces along those lines. As I say, I'm trying not to take the mickey, so a full run, this is a run that I did this morning. It takes around about 45 minutes. MySQL is the slowest job, that starts first, all the other jobs complete first, and on failure you get an email notification to tell you that it failed, and then you can go and find out why it failed, and hopefully fix those issues before you ever push it to our integration system. And hopefully by doing that you get the benefit of these tests. It's free to use them, and means that we don't hit many issues and stumbling blocks in integration that could possibly just be avoided just by really simple testing. So that's kind of most of what I have to show. So I just don't know if there's any questions on that really.
So just to clarify, can you mute please again?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Just to clarify, is this Travis integration something that every Moodle developer, be it core contributor or plugin developer, can set up for themselves so they can pre-check their branches and their code even before it is submitted for integration?
Exactly, yeah, that, yes. Anyone with any fork of Moodle which has this file, this travis.yaml file, can push any number of commits they want, and they will run the unit tests on Travis. And if you have a plugin and you want to include that in your commit, then all the unit tests will be run against that plugin.
That's really great. Really great news, and nice work on it, Andrew. I'm pretty sure that you will have some guys coming or asking for support in a couple of days if they are interested in it. Excellent. Thank you very much.
There's a couple of questions I'll just address.
Okay, please go.
Somebody's pointed out that we already have Jenkins, so they don't get the point of this. The point basically is Jenkins is something that we run. Its priority is to run the integration tests. We can run other tests for people, but this is just a free way that you get from, without having to scale out our hardware. We get multiple PHP versions, and it just works. And you get all the notifications, and you can push whatever code you want to test there. So the idea is it's not to replace Jenkins, it's just to give you that additional information. And another question is, can we add new tests, for example, bhat? There's a time limit on the execution, and there's a fair use policy. So if we were to run bhat, and Raj had a look at this, to get bhat to complete in the time that we have available, we'd need to run about 20 different processes, and have 20 different, about that, wasn't it? Yeah. 20 different parallel tasks. And to me, that's a bit of a breach of their fair use policy, and therefore we shouldn't even try. You can do bhat, you can even run Firefox and Selenium tests, but it's just as to what's fair and what's acceptable in that free testing environment. We do intend to add some additional tests, but there's a few issues with the local CI tests that we have at the moment. Some of them are specifically aimed at our Jenkins environment, and they won't yet, or then we need to do a bit of work to make them more agnostic, so they can run on not only Travis, but anyone else's Jenkins environment, because I know that other people want to start running things like Jenkins.
Travis, running bhat on Travis, I have a branch, so in case you want to run it on just a specific commit or something, you can use that and just push your commit with that travis.yml, and it should actually run that bhat for you. That's it.
Good. Okay then, thank you very much for this great news. There are a couple of discussions going around in our dev pad. Let's see what guys come up yet. There was also one new improvement in 3.0 that I sort of forgot about, which was developed by Fred Massard regarding some callbacks into plugins and these things like that. May I ask Fred to just shortly mention it and raise our awareness about it? Back to Perth. Hello, Fred.
Thanks, David. Yes, this is going to be very, very short. So we added a callback you know, all those callbacks that you can use to inject nodes in the navigation, like the user settings or user navigation or course navigation, I think. Well, we added a callback to add nodes in the category navigation.
Awesome.
And I wanted to check today if the documentation was up to date on Moodle Docs, but I couldn't because the server's down. But I'll do that after the meeting if the server's back.
Good. Good. Thank you very much again. I guess it is something that developers will find in upgrade.txt file, will they?
They should, unless I forgot. But no, it should be there.
Okay, thanks. Okay, thanks.
It is.
It is there. It is there.
Cool. Meetings.
Awesome. Thanks for confirmation. So there was one small thing yet I was thinking would be nice to mention here, given that we might have a lot of Moodle plugins developers come in. One of the things that was improved in Moodle 3, as Damon already mentioned, is plugin management during the site upgrade and installation. Basically, that plugin check screen that you can see when upgrading your Moodle site, there are a couple of things or a couple of more things that administrators can do with the plugins they try to install. I could demo right now, but I think I can just quickly mention it here that the administrator can now install all missing dependencies that some plugins require on. They can cancel the installation of new plugins. They can cancel the upgrade of some plugins that are to be upgraded. They can install all available updates at once, not one by one. All these things, while we were working on them, they made it quite clear that there are a couple of things that are really essential or important to be done carefully and correctly on the plugin side, and it is something that plugin developers and plugin maintainers should be very well aware of. There are basically two things in version PHP file that play a role or significant role in all these mechanisms behind, which is the declared plugin maturity and the declared plugin version. Plugin maturity is important because when Moodle when the administrator is installing missing dependencies, the current API and the algorithm behind picks the most mature version from the plugins directory that fulfills the dependency. So if you have one plugin in beta maturity, another version in stable maturity, then even if the stable version fulfills the dependency, it is picked instead of the beta release, even if it is more recent. So something to be aware of and pay attention to when declaring beta and stable and alpha and release candidates maturities for plugins. The other thing was plugin version number. There was that number declared in version PHP file. Again, it plays essential role in all this mechanism because we need to make sure that the plugin version uniquely identifies the plugin code that is used and everything. So it's turned out that currently the plugins directory does not really force plugin developers to make these things unique and everything. So so I opened a new policy discussion about this to raise these requirements on plugins, so that we do not allow different plugin PHP code having the same plugin version and things like that. Everything is discussed in the tracker, and if you are a plugin developer, you are very welcome to join this discussion. So that would be all from this thing. There are a couple of questions or discussions. Can I install plugin? What are chattel Moodle sites going to be backup? Sorry, I don't understand that one. I think we sort of covered everything that I currently remember we had on agenda. So unless there is some other notes or something to be mentioned by either of you, Eric, Tony, Per, guys, Karen, are we okay? Okay. As usual in the school, the silence means that everybody agrees. So let me thank you once again for. Fun, Karen, go on.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, no, I just wanted to add about the plugin management that
Okay.
that it does seem to be really easy to use, and hopefully it will get lots of testing on it.
Yeah, I think so, and thank you. Karen was the one who tested all the features and combinations of this, so it was very appreciated. So let me thank you again for watching us today. We are all looking forward to upcoming Moodle 3 release that comes with brand new features and nice improvements for both users and developers and administrators and teachers. So there are a lot of things to be worked on yet for 3.1, 3.2 and other releases, and we are very happy for having you to help us with all the Moodle development. Thank you very much and see you next time. Bye.